The world is not ready for what's about to happen. Two figures, one born to protect and the other created to destroy, now stand face to face. They share the same face, the same power, and the same symbol. But only one will decide the fate of the city. This is not just a fight, it's the final showdown of Superman against himself. The sky was torn apart by rolling thunder as black clouds gathered above the ruined city. Flames danced in the distance, licking the shattered bones of skyscrapers that once touched the heavens. Cars lay crushed like toys, streets were split open with deep cracks, and the silence between explosions carried the weight of something dreadful yet to come. From above, a sharp streak of light cut through the clouds. A figure descended, his cape whipping like a banner of hope against the smoke-filled horizon. He landed with a thunderous crash, his boots cracking the pavement beneath him. Superman stood tall, his eyes glowing faintly, scanning the destruction that sprawled across the city like a scar. His chest rose and fell slowly, his breath steady. But his heart braced for what was ahead. The world had seen villains before. It had seen monsters, armies, gods. But what loomed ahead was something darker. From the mist of shattered buildings, a shadow stirred. A heavy step echoed through the silence, each impact shaking the ground like the footsteps of a titan. Then, out of the dust, he appeared. The figure looked identical, the same face, the same towering build, the same symbol across his chest. But this was no hero. His eyes burned red with malice, and his smirk carved cruelty into the face that should have inspired hope. His cape was torn and blackened at the edges, his presence bending the air around him like a storm. Superman narrowed his eyes, his jaw tightening. He had known this moment would come, the confrontation with the darker reflection of himself. The clone, the mistake, the twisted copy born not to save, but to conquer. They stood in silence, the wind howling through the ruins between them. Sparks of energy rippled off their bodies, two forces of nature waiting to collide. The city held its breath, as if the broken earth itself feared the battle about to be unleashed. With a sudden burst, the dark Superman clenched his fists, cracking the ground beneath him. His laugh was low, bitter, and carried across the dead streets. Superman didn't flinch. He steadied himself, his cape flowing behind him like a banner ready for war, and then, without warning, they moved. The air screamed as both Supermen launched at each other with blinding speed. The collision was like a thunderclap, a shockwave bursting outward, shattering glass from towers that had somehow survived the earlier chaos. The very ground beneath them split open, dust and fire bursting upward in their wake. The fight had begun. The world shook as the two Supermen tore into each other with unrelenting force. Their first collision was not just a punch, it was an explosion, a violent ripple that blasted through the air like the city itself had screamed. Dust clouds erupted. Broken glass rained down like shimmering daggers. For a heartbeat, nothing else existed but the storm of fists. The roar of power and the shattering of everything in their path. The true Superman gritted his teeth, blocking a flurry of blows. Each strike from his dark reflection was like steel, slamming against steel, every punch carrying the weight of mountains. His arms ached, not from weakness, but from the knowledge that he wasn't fighting an enemy, he was fighting himself. The reflection knew his moves, knew his speed, and countered with precision. It was like looking into a mirror that wanted him dead. They launched into the air, cutting across the skyline in blurs of red and blue. Buildings cracked as they ricocheted from one side of the city to the other. A skyscraper groaned as evil. Superman hurled the hero straight through its center, steel and concrete snapping like twigs. The tower collapsed behind him in a roar of fire and dust, but Superman shot back out, fists blazing, driving his doppelganger across the sky. Their heat vision lit up the heavens. Two beams of crimson collided in midair, burning like a newborn sun. The clash was deafening, their twin powers grinding against each other, pushing waves of molten energy outward. The clouds above ripped apart, thunder booming in response, as if the heavens themselves were terrified of the storm below. But the Dark One pressed harder. His eyes burned brighter, his snarl twisting into something almost monstrous. The energy, Blast forced Superman back, his boots dragging across the ground as the concrete beneath him melted. He dug his hands into the earth, refusing to give way, refusing to fall. With a roar, he shifted his weight and deflected the blast upward, splitting the night sky with fire. For a moment, silence. Then the clone was on him again, faster, fiercer, unrelenting. He slammed Superman into the earth, the impact sending shockwaves that toppled what remained of the nearby streets. Dust and fire swallowed them both, but through the chaos, the fight raged on. Superman struck back with fury, his fists landing in rapid succession. Each blow was a thunderclap, each strike forcing the Dark Twin backward step by step. But the clone only grinned, blood trickling from his lip. He relished the pain, he wanted more. With a savage headbutt, he staggered Superman, then drove him into the side of a mountain of wreckage. The ground shook. The air cracked. The entire city was becoming their battlefield. Through the rubble, Superman rose again, chest heaving, cape torn, dirt and blood staining his face. But his eyes still burned with resolve. He would not yield. He could not yield. He knew that if he failed here, there would be no one left to stop this dark version of himself from burning the world to ashes. The clone's laughter echoed across the ruins. "You can't win. You're too soft, too weak." His words were venom, but they cut deep because they were true. Superman's strength had always been bound by his compassion, his unwillingness to cross the line his enemies so freely stepped over. His greatest power was also his greatest burden. The hero clenched his fists. His silence was his answer. He would fight not because he wanted to destroy, but because he had to protect. Once more they charged. Once more the world trembled. The battle was far from over. The night had grown heavier, as though the sky itself leaned down to watch the war between gods. Fires still raged across the city, casting long shadows over crumbled streets. Amid the chaos, the two Supermen clashed again and again, blows so fast they blurred into lightning, movements so violent they tore apart the ground with every impact. But slowly, the tide began to shift. The dark Superman fought with reckless fury, each strike filled with rage, each movement driven by the hunger to dominate. His punches were wild, but they carried devastating force. The true Superman struggled to match the relentless pace. He blocked, countered, and struck back, but for every blow he landed, the clone delivered too. The air grew colder, filled with the sound of concrete splitting and steel bending. Then came the moment that changed everything. The clone caught Superman mid-strike, twisting his arm with brutal precision and slamming him down through the remains of an office tower. The ground quaked as the building collapsed around them. Superman groaned, dust and glass cutting into his skin, his cape buried beneath twisted beams. Before he could rise, the dark reflection was upon him, a hand wrapped around his throat, fingers digging deep, lifting him from the rubble with terrifying ease. Superman's boots kicked against the air, powerless in the crushing grip. The clone's eyes glowed brighter, a crimson fire that illuminated the broken city around them. His voice was a low snarl, dripping with venom. "You're weak because you care," he hissed. "You fight for them, these fragile, helpless creatures. They slow you down, they make you soft. That's why you'll lose." Superman choked against the grip, his vision blurring, his lungs burning for air. He could feel the truth buried in those words, and that was the cruelest part. Every life he chose to protect was a chain that held him back, keeping him from unleashing his full potential. His compassion made him human, but now it made him vulnerable. The clone slammed him into the ground again, the earth shattering beneath the impact. Dust spiraled upward as the dark figure hovered above, eyes blazing like twin suns. "You could rule this world," he growled. "You could have anything, but instead you bow to them." The hero struggled to his knees, blood trickling down. His face, his body trembling from the onslaught. He pressed his hand to the ground, steadying himself, breathing hard. For a moment, doubt crept into him. Perhaps the dark reflection was right. Perhaps his endless restraint was nothing but weakness. But then he heard it, the faintest cry. A sound buried beneath the chaos. His super hearing caught it, a child, somewhere beneath the rubble, calling out for help. That voice pierced through the haze, cutting deeper than any blow ever could. It reminded him why he fought, why he endured, why he never allowed himself to become what his clone had embraced. Superman rose slowly, shoulders heavy, but eyes burning with renewed resolve. The clone sneered, ready to strike again, but for the first time, there was hesitation. Something in the hero's gaze was unshakable, a fire that brute strength could never extinguish. "You think compassion makes me weak," Superman whispered under his breath, his voice steady despite the pain. "But it's what makes me stronger." "Then you'll ever be." The clone roared, lunging forward with a punch that could shatter mountains. But this time, Superman caught the fist mid-swing. The ground cracked beneath his feet, veins of power spreading outward. With a surge of strength born not of anger, but of unbreakable will, he squeezed until bones cracked. The clone howled, eyes wide with shock. The fight was no longer even. The tide had turned. With a furious uppercut, Superman launched his reflection into the air, debris flying in every direction. He shot upward in a blur, meeting him mid-sky, slamming him back down with the force of a meteor. The impact shook the city, sending flames and smoke spiraling like a storm. The dark Superman staggered to his feet, fury twisting his face. But for the first time, doubt shadowed his expression. He had underestimated the one thing he could never copy: the strength of a heart that refused to give in. The hero stood firm, battered but unbroken, his chest rising and falling with determination. Around them the city still burned, but in that moment hope began to flicker. The final showdown was coming, and only one would walk away. The battle had entered its turning point. Asterisk. The city was no longer just a battlefield, it was a graveyard of steel and fire. The ground was fractured, streets torn apart, and towers lay like broken giants on their knees. Smoke curled into the heavens, carrying the smell of ash and defeat. And in the heart of it all, two figures stood, one bleeding, battered yet unyielding. The other snarling, furious, his strength fueled by rage alone. The dark Superman's lips curled into a twisted smile, though blood streaked down his jaw. His laughter echoed through the ruins, mocking, venomous. "You think this ends with you standing tall?" He spat, stepping forward, fists trembling with fury. "You can't destroy me." "I am you. I'm everything you hide, everything you bury inside. I am the Superman this world truly needs, merciless, unstoppable." The hero straightened his back, chest heaving, eyes burning with steady fire. His cape hung in shreds, his body bruised, but his spirit shone brighter than ever. He knew this was more than a fight for survival, it was a war for the soul of what Superman meant. The silence between them broke like glass. With a roar, both launched at each other once more. The world screamed as they collided, midair shockwaves, splitting the night, sending flames spiraling skyward. Their fists became blurs, each strike louder than thunder, each movement faster than lightning. The earth beneath them cracked open, swallowing streets, pulling buildings into its hunger. Superman was faster now, sharper. Every punch he landed carried not only his strength but his resolve. The cries of the people hidden beneath rubble fueled him. Every heartbeat reminded him of why he fought: not for dominance, not for conquest, but for life. The clone matched him blow for blow, but desperation began to seep into his movements. His strikes lost rhythm. His fury clouded his precision. Then came the moment of no return. The clone roared, unleashing his full fury in a storm of heat vision. Beams of crimson tore through the city, splitting highways, igniting fires, leaving molten scars across the landscape. Superman countered with his own, the twin blasts colliding in a blinding inferno. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun, heat waves flattening everything in their path. They pushed against each other, red beams snarling in the air, fire raining down like meteors. The dark Superman's strength came from rage, his energy burning wild and unstable. Superman's beam, though weakened at first, began to grow steadier, brighter, fueled by every ounce of hope he carried. With a final roar, his vision burned through his clones, forcing him back, sending the dark figure crashing to the ground in a storm of fire and debris. The clone stumbled to his knees, his chest heaving, his eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, fear glimmered in those crimson eyes. He looked up at the hero, his face twisted with rage and denial. "You're nothing without your chains," he shouted. "Without their weakness to hold you back, you would be me." Superman floated above him, fists clenched, eyes glowing. His voice was calm, steady, unwavering. "No, without them I would be lost. They are not my weakness, they are my reason." With that, he descended like a meteor, driving his fist into the clone's chest with all the power of his will. The impact thundered through the ruins, sending a shockwave that leveled what little remained standing. The ground cracked open, forming a massive crater where the dark Superman fell silent. Dust and fire settled. The world grew quiet. Superman stood tall in the center of the ruin, his cape whipping in the wind. His chest rose and fell heavily, his body trembling from exhaustion, but his eyes remained fierce. He gazed down at the crater where his reflection lay motionless, smoke rising from the broken earth. The battle was over. Slowly, Superman lifted his head toward the night sky. The clouds parted just enough to reveal a single star shining through, a reminder that light still endured even after the darkest storm. He exhaled, long and heavy, then turned toward the city. His work was not finished. Lives still needed saving. He had fought his greatest enemy himself and emerged not just victorious but stronger. The final showdown had ended. But Superman's true fight, the fight to protect, would never end. The screen faded to black, and with it, only one truth remained. Hope had won.